stop comparing yourself to others when it comes to aesthetics. Have you ever looked at someone and thought, wow, I'd love to look like them. Wow, how do they look that good and why are they in such good shape? If that's you, then I want you to hang around, just listen to what I have to say. So basically, too often now we look at people on YouTube, on Instagram and Facebook, and you see these models, these people that are in such fantastic shape, and we want to look the same. And the big question is, can I look like that? And the answer is very complicated. So basically, there's a few things we need to bear in mind when it comes to what we look like and what our potential is. So I guess one thing to talk about is a lot of these people are at the top of their game. They are probably either famous or they work within the industry of being fit and healthy. So they're in a shape for their own profession, whether they be a model or whether they are a bodybuilder, etc. Now, for us to be able to achieve that same type of physique, firstly, we need to talk about basically is their job. We work potentially a 9 to 5, or we have things going on in our lives where we can't just focus on the gym and our food all the time. It's not our job to do that. Whereas if you're being paid to work out and also eat well and look after yourself, if that is your job, then you're going to be able to do it. So whereas for the average person that's sitting at a desk 9 to 5, they've got 2 kids, a family to look after, a very busy lifestyle, that suddenly becomes so much harder. So we've got to be realistic in what we can achieve. Now, apart from that, I want to look at a few other factors where it actually comes down to the anatomy of our bodies. So I have clients that come to see me and go, oh, like this person, I'd love to look like this. And of course, I'd love to look like Chris Hemsworth. Probably not going to happen. But the thing is that we've all got a different body shape to a certain extent. And when I'm talking about that, the first thing I want to mention is skeletons. So our bone structure and the way we are made up just with our bones alone is going to make a big difference. This seems very obvious, but some people take certain things into account, but not others. For example, for myself, I'm 6'6", I am very tall, so I have longer limbs. That makes a huge difference if I wanted to look like someone that was quite like broad and stocky. It's not going to happen, my limbs are too long. I'm at peace with that, that's completely fine. Other people don't quite see that. And where it becomes even more complicated is actually with hip width in your actual pelvis and then also in your shoulder girdle. So for example, you get some guys that have a very narrow shoulder girdle, which is going to make it harder to look broader. Whereas some guys naturally just have a wide shoulder girdle with their skeleton, so they automatically look broader from the start. Obviously, a lot of women don't want to be broad in the shoulders, but that can happen. But that is also something that you will then have to work with. Same as I've met guys with quite big pelvises, so it looks like their hips are wider, but I've also met women with quite narrow pelvises, so that makes a big difference as well. So these are all things you have to take into account, because at the end of the day, the foundation we have is our skeleton. Muscles then insert onto that, and then we're all covered up with skin. And that is how you can have already such a huge shape difference. So then we're then going to talk on about muscle. So if you've got like short limbs or long limbs, your muscles are going to look different because they're going to be stretched out. If you've got a very long limb, for example, especially in the calves or like your upper arm, your muscle has to be stretched and elongated out. So it's going to look thinner, lower, smaller. So some guys might not like this if they want to look bigger. Then it's going to be really difficult if you're tall. I know all about that. But if you're quite short, then it's going to be easier to look quite stocky. This is almost an opposite problem for a lot of women, because of the shorter they are, the thicker that your limbs are going to potentially look. Whereas if you're taller, there's more space for that muscle to stretch out over. So it is potentially a little bit easier to look thinner when you're taller, and it is a lot harder to look thinner when you're shorter. So we've got to take that into account. Now, Whilst we're talking about muscles, we're going to talk about muscle insertion. So muscle insertion is really it's quite super important, because actually it's what makes you, when you are down to a low body fat percentage, you're quite toned up. Some people still aren't quite happy with the way they look, because we're looking at a very generic look of muscle insertion with a lot of these models and bodybuilders, etc. So, for example, the carbs. The carbs are a really good example for this. So, where your muscle inserts in your calf, it always start at the top in the crease by your knee, the back of your knee, and then your calf will come down. If you have a low insertion, as in your muscle inserts really low down towards the heel, you're going to you've got a bigger calf. Whereas if your calf inserts halfway up, higher, and it's all at the top, suddenly you got look like you got a thinner leg, because the bottom half of the bone, or your whole limb, hasn't got the muscle coming out, so it's going to look thinner. I hope that makes sense. So we can't determine whether your muscles insert at any point. That is just genetic, so you just have to deal with that. So anyone that has quite small calves, it could just mean that their muscle inserts higher. And then some people have bigger calves, and that could be all just from appearance, where it inserts lower. So you've got to take that into account. If you're sat down on a chair in a pair of shorts, you can just point your toe, almost like a ballerina kind of point, and your calf muscle will tense up, and you'll be able to see where it inserts. And you can compare it with friends or family and just see who's got what, and that really answers a lot. So that's got to come into a factor as well. So not only have we got how long our bones are, how wide our bones are, but also where our muscles are inserting, and that is all genetics. We can't do anything to change that. You can't get your bones elongated, you can't get your muscles reinserted. That is what we have to live with. And a really good example of muscle insertion again is when people talk about six packs, and you can get a 4-pack, an 8-pack. If someone's got 8-pack, that doesn't mean they've got super strong abs and they've been doing thousands of sit-ups. That is just how many times their muscle inserts onto their stomach. The ab muscles are just 2 long muscles, and they insert several times. So the amount of times they insert, the more of a pack they've got. So when you insert twice, then it's a 6-pack, and so on. And that's what that is. It's nothing to do with really impressive core strength. I mean, they might do. They've all got a low body fat percentage to see it, but it's not an indicator of how strong their abs are. But yeah, so I wanted to clear that one up. I think it's a really good example. And then so the last thing I want to talk about is fat distribution. So where you put your body fat. And this is very unique to each individual as well. So the interesting thing is most guys I train usually will put all their weight onto their stomach. It's really common to have the beer belly, as they call it. It's all kind of sits to the front, and then also their lower back. Now this is because when you digest food, when you take food from your gut into the walls and the lining of your intestines and all of that, it's going to go straight to the first place if it needs to be stored as fat, which is around your gut. Now with women, it is slightly different, because their bodies would naturally want to move it to different places, because if you had quite a large, say, beer belly as a woman, but then also got pregnant, it's a lot of weight to carry in one area. So your body knows that it needs to distribute it more. So that's why you're getting more going on to the hips, or some women just put it on in every area. So that's going to make a big difference as well. So that's why you do get these different shapes of depending on where your body prefers to store fat. Now, when you're losing weight, it's almost a similar thing. So if you are the type of person that stores fat all over your body, it's really difficult to kind of see yourself losing weight, because you'll just pull bits of fat from different areas. Whereas for a guy, for a lot of guys will have lean arms and legs, and they'll just see their belly, their stomach go down. For some women, it's quite hard to notice the difference. Some people say to me they would prefer to take their kind of they've got a belly and to move the fat everywhere, and they would prefer that. And I guess that kind of makes sense. but it is literally potluck genetics of where that's going to be going. So prepare when you're losing weight. You're going to find it go in the strangest places to start with. Is like when you're losing your wrist get like thinner, your ankles and your calves and your forearms, and usually all zones in. You get a leaner kind of around the shoulders, but you're going to be focused on the place you hate most, which is around your waist. That's the bit you really want to lose weight on, but unfortunately it's normally the last place it's going to come from. So you've got to be consistent. Anyway, going back to the main topic of this video, which is, can we look the same as some of our idols? And the answer is no, but that's purely because you can look great, you could be in as good a shape, but you're not going to look the same, obviously. Your muscle insertions are going to look different. Your skeleton's going to be different. You might not be as broad. So you've got to be realistic with what you can achieve. No one's saying you can't look great. You can, but you're going to look great in your own individual way. When you look at some celebrities, you look at them and go, wow, like they've got a very unique kind of build or facial structure or whatever, but that's what makes them look great. And then people need to understand that themselves. So you're going to look good, but just in your own kind of like way, your own unique look. Everyone is very different. You're never going to find two people, apart from twins, obviously, but it's very hard to find people that look that similar. We've all got our own little things. And yeah, so the answer is no, we're not going to look the same, but we can still look really good. And I just wanted to point out some of the things that make a real big difference. So yeah, those muscles insertions, the skeleton, and then also fat placement. So I hope you found this interesting. I hope this has helped you understand a bit more about like what you can achieve in yourself. So if you are, say, potentially taller, you know your limitations. If you're shorter, you know your limitations there as well. You can understand why you might look a bit bigger or why you might look a little bit skinnier. It is all up to genetics, but it is not impossible. You've just got to work with what you've got and then understand, your limitations. So yeah, thank you for watching this. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you soon.